Welcome back, Steeler fans, to another episode here at SteelerFury.com, Week 3 edition, upcoming Cleveland Browns. Ew, no one likes them. So, kind of a rough week this past week against our most hated friends in the AFC East. Friends is probably a strong word at this point. You know, it used to be a Tom Brady, Ben Roethlisberger matchup. I think the broadcast said this is the first time one of them has not been in a New England / Pittsburgh game in like 21 years. That's incredible when you think about it, that those two kind of define that rivalry. And I definitely missed Big Ben this past Sunday. I don't know about the rest of you, but Corey, let's dive into this game that, you know, another close loss and just kind of a frustrating loss. Seemed like every time the Steelers went no huddle and fast tempo pace, we actually could move the ball, but you know, we only did it out of absolute necessity. And I think that's going to be my sticking point this evening. Just that you've seen glimpses of this offense being able to move the ball, but boy, if we're not pressed into action, we're just not going to see it. Corey, what else did you see from this past game this past Sunday?
I mean, I think it's something to note that it's been how many years now that we go up tempo and the offense seems to go well, but the second we slow it down, it starts to stall out. I mean, I think it was just a lethargic offense overall. Offensive coordinator, quarterback is just, I mean, Najee with some of the vision problems that people have been pointing out. It just not a very encouraging game overall from the offense.
No, and then even so on defense, you know, the run defense was there at times, but man, when they needed to stop the run, it just seemed like New England could run right off their right side, you know, right at, you know, where TJ Watt would be if he's healthy. And they got tough yards going to the right side. You know, Chris Reed did his best, you know, our defensive line did its best, but you know, whether it was Damian Harris or Ramondre Stevenson, seemed like those guys found a way to fall forward, you know, push for some extra yards, which just really put in Pittsburgh in disadvantage situations all day long, especially with the play action passing game. And New England seemed to really attack our middle pretty well. You know, Hunter Henry got involved. God, we made Jacoby Myers look like a freaking Pro Bowler. You know, just
at a position that's not a gunner.
Say that again, Corey?
At a position that's not a gunner.
Yeah. Right. So just a little disconcerting there. You know, we all kind of knew that these issues would probably start to surface with no TJ Watt out there. Yes, I was a little hopeful that we'd control those a little bit better, but just seemed like New England, you know, just seemed to catch Pittsburgh in, you know, bad defenses all the time. You know, Jacoby Myers on the deep end killed, you know, our corners trying to cross him and carry him over the middle. Just a disappointing game. Just because I felt like the Pittsburgh could win this game and fell just short. So any other things you want to say about this game, Corey?
I mean, one thing I took away from it, I feel like the offensive line's actually been overall fairly decent. It was probably our lowest outlook position coming into the season, but I feel like, especially for what's been expected of them, I'm not saying they've been great, but there have been many times where you look at the O-line and you're like, damn, that's awful play. You're like, that's just a complete collapse. I feel like for the most part, they've been doable. Like, it's been a manageable O-line. It's just on other guys to make plays at that point.
Yeah, I mean, there were some bright spots this past Saturday. You know, there were a few times where they did open up some holes. You know, you kind of mentioned the Najee Harris thing. You know, it'd be really refreshing to him to take a page out of Jaylen Warren's book and just run forward and grind and try to get some heart. You know, put your foot in the ground and go north-south. I just think Najee does too much of this east-west game at times. You know, I feel like he could do that at Alabama and get away with it. In the pros, it's a lot harder for him to bounce stuff outside. That's just not that. I understand that's what he would like to do. I think Pittsburgh needs to focus more on going north-south with their running backs.
Well, in Alabama, he was a lot more of a north-south running back. He never moved this laterally in college. I feel like this is probably a byproduct of him trying to artificially create his yards because he knows. I mean, it was a bad O line this year, and I'm not saying it's good this year, but it at the very least, it's not awful so far. But I feel like he's just trying to artificially create his yards, and he just needs to trust it. And, grind out 5 yard carries, 6 yard carries instead of looking for the 14, 15 yard breaks that aren't going to come as often as he's looking for.
Yeah, that's a good point. When we would talk about quarterbacks that way, we'd say stop trying to play hero ball.
Yep.
I think that was kind of a big thing that got thrown on Baker Mayfield last year, was like, stop trying to play hero ball and just run the offense. I kind of little similar instance there, kind of comparing Najee to Baker in that instance. Just run the play, read the hole, and go there. So, and then it was nice to see George Pickens a little more involved. There were actually some balls thrown his direction for a change.
Yeah.
Catchable balls too. That's another caveat. Catchable balls. But I thought Deontay had a nice game. I'll tell you what, for those people who are kind of on the doubting the Pat Fryermuth train, he's been the one lone bright spot, I think, in this offense. He's scored 2 touchdowns in back-to-back weeks. He's proved to be very reliable. We get on him all the time because he's not an elite athlete or a great run blocker, but he's just this all-around good, solid tight end. I mean, we had that for years with Heath Miller, and with the offense struggling as it is, he has been a bright spot there. So, but let's get off this New England game. I could just go on a tangent forever on how, we couldn't hold up on the right side. I could do that all night long. So let's get out of that. At some point, we've had this discussion, I think, about every week, but when is it time to put Mitchell Trubisky in? Because or not Mitchell Trubisky, I'm sorry, Kenny Pickett. When is it time to bench Mitchell Trubisky? That's what I meant to say. And when is it going to be time to put Kenny Pickett in, Corey? It's just, through 2 games, I am, put it nicely, very uninspired by the play of Mitchell Trubisky.
So I was texting Will during the game, and he said that he asked if we're the same person or if I ever had a DNA test because he agreed with what I said. I'm sure he'll say it when he comes on, but I said Mitch Trubisky reminds me a lot of Blake Bortles, where he's a guy with traits. He's a guy who should be good at throwing the ball. He's strong arm, he's mobile, but when he's out there on the field, something just looks off. Like he's just not a football player. Like, where something's just not clicking. Like there's guys out there, and Kenny Pickett's one of them, where they just look like they're a gamer. They play the game fluidly. And Mitch and, like I said, Blake Bortles, and there's other guys. There's plenty of them throughout past few years, but he just doesn't look natural out there quarterbacking.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. Looks a little bit, with all of the experience, that we've said, Mitchell Trubisky has, for starting, the 4 years with the Bears, and then, coming here, hopefully that experience would be good. It still kind of looks like he's a little bit like a deer in the headlights sometimes. It's like he wants to make a play, but doesn't. It just seems to fall short more often than not. So I think that's kind of where I'm with it. It just uninspired. Uninspired is the word I'm going to keep using, because it doesn't seem like he wants to try to make the tough throws. It's like he's afraid of the moment, in my opinion.
What it looks like watching is, instead of playing where it's like muscle memory and he's like letting his arm work, feels like he looks, thinks, then throws, or looks, thinks, second read, or looks, thinks. Like it looks like everything just has a lag to it.
That's a good way of putting it. A lag to it, man. And you don't have room for that in the NFL. Things are so sped up in the NFL. So yeah, I mean, personally, I'm ready for Kenny Pickett. like what can really go wrong at this point? Now, I will say I wouldn't throw him into the Cleveland game. I think week 4 would be a good target because you get him the long week, you get 10 days between games. You can, install him as your starter. You can design the offense more around him. You can game plan for him a little bit, but I guess I'm just frustrated enough to the point where it's like, I'm ready to see what Kenny can do at this point. I mean,
Yeah. And I think this was, this might be a bit of a sick thought, but when I was right before Pat caught the touchdown, I was thinking in my head, I was like, if he threw an interception here, Kenny's probably going in. Like, I'm not completely against the turnover here, just one way or the other, just because it's just tough to watch him back there.
Yeah, it really is. And as much as I want to see Kenny Pickett, I'm not sure the offense is going to change with Kenny Pickett.
Nope.
Like, unfortunately, I think it's just going to, remain this stale, unimaginative offense where it's not going to ask him to do anything. Just, kind of like Trubisky right now is, that's the offense is there for him to run. And that's about it. I'm worried if Kenny Pickett goes in there and we don't ask him to do anything, make any tough throws or whatever. That's just like, what's the point in putting him out there if he's just going to go through the motions? I'd rather have Kenny Pickett, the gunslinger in college, and at this point, I won't even care if he threw interceptions. At least he's trying to make plays where I've said before, it's just like, I just don't get that from Trubisky. He tries to make the play just enough to, so we can keep moving down the field. There's no wow throws from Kenny Pickett at this point. Like you said, there's something fundamentally almost looks wrong with him, like throwing the ball right now. It just looks so mechanical and, like he's trying to do too much, which is crazy when you think about it, because I don't think he's doing anything too much. But yeah, I'm definitely ready for Kenny Pickett at this point. Let's just go through all the bumps and bruises.
Yep.
Get it out of the way this year. I mean, because he will have some bumps and bruises behind this offensive line.
Yeah.
But let's talk about our upcoming matchup here. We get we have to go to Cleveland on a short week, which is never good. Steelers get the shotgun start for the NFL this week. So on a short week, I really hate going into Cleveland. Just big division rival there, and Cleveland won their first game, lost an incredible game to the Jets. I couldn't believe the Jets came back and won that. I mean, welcome to the league, Garrett Wilson. That's the way to make an impact, sir. But to have Joe Flacco, I mean, come in, and beat Cleveland. That was just like if I was a Cleveland fan, I'd just be like, we just let Joe Flacco beat us. Like, this guy hasn't started a meaningful game in 3-4 years, again, this year he's going to beat us. It's just like, oh God, I've seen enough of him just when he was starting for Baltimore. But kudos to the Jets, got their first kind of big win under Saleh, if you ask me. So, but as far as Cleveland goes, I expect to see a lot of similar stuff to when New England did to us, especially with how we kind of just gave up yardage on the right side or whatever. I expect a lot of Nick Chubb, a lot of Kareem Hunt, a lot of running the ball, play action, passing, because our defense struggled with that. So I'd be shocked if, Cleveland isn't looking at that, and Kevin Stefanski, they're just like, oh, this is definitely a game where we can try to impose our will on the Steelers defense. So, Corey, what do you think about our offense? What do you think our offensive strategy should be going into Cleveland?
I don't even know. I don't even know what strategy. It's kind of like just throwing a dart at a piece of copy paper, because I'm just not sure what our offense is. First downs just seem to be some form of an inside zone, maybe a shovel pass, and then second and third is a throw, a quick out, or a swing pass. It's frustrating because we kind of should have expected it from the Canada offense, because what would have happened in preseason, which is what did, is there's going to be more window dressing, just because that's what they've been installing. It's going to be a slightly more exotic offense than, the vanilla defenses that they're facing. But once real game planning kicks up in meaningful regular season games, it's going to fall apart. And that's what we're seeing happen. So I would like to see us target the Browns. I'd like to see us target the Browns corners and the Browns safeties, put them, because you could see Joe Flacco is able to throw on these guys. Like, they've got names back there, but Joe Flacco, like, come on.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because I was even thinking, just kind of thinking into this game, if Joe Flacco can carve up the Cleveland Browns, anyone should be able to carve up the Cleveland Browns, or at least you would think so. I think Denzel Ward is a good corner for Cleveland. I think Deontay Johnson could struggle with him a little bit. If I'm Cleveland, I'm having him probably shadow Deontay all weekend. But this is where George Pickens and Claypool, have to pick it up against the likes of Greg Newsome. I'm forgetting who their nickelback is at the moment. It's a rookie.
I know they like throwing a lot of safeties in there, but I think it is I know who you're talking about, but I think for the most Martin Emerson.
Yeah, Martin Emerson. Thank you.
But I know they like putting some safeties down there too.
Yeah, I think they still have Grant Delpit there. Very strong, aggressive safety when he was at LSU, and he's carried that over to the league. John Johnson, very solid safety, doesn't make a lot of mistakes. So I think we will have a tough time passing, but I think we still can do it. Like we said, if Joe Flacco can do it, hopefully we can do it. But a lot of that was scheme. It's like we've got to scheme these guys open at this point, because I feel like we're running just like an NBA offense where we're hoping everyone who's on a one-on-one can just win their matchup. And so far, I haven't seen a whole lot of that outside of Deontay Johnson. Claypool and Pickens, they can make tough catches, but doesn't really feel like either of them have created great separation at this point into the season. Claypool's been a chain mover at this point. We haven't sent him down the field at all, which is ironic, because as a rookie, we would send him down the field.
Week one, he had that deep catch, and then we haven't thrown a ball to him like that since. Right.
Yeah, Bill Belichick said it best this past weekend. He viewed him going into the game as like a big tight end, an athletic tight end. So it just feels like we're going to get a lot of the same there. But I really feel like we have to start going deep to Deontay and George Pickens. Like, we have to start stretching the field so defenses can back off the running game. That's one thing Pittsburgh hasn't had yet. We have not had a numbers advantage when trying to run the ball yet, because no one expects the passing game to work. So it doesn't matter if we get a hat on a hat on a hat. There's another hat at the line. So then you're asking the offensive line to identify who's coming, who's not coming. There's still a group that's coming together. So, we saw that a few times this past week, and there's a little bit of miscommunication on who to pick up when New England sent a blitz and whatnot. So yeah, I just expect this to be a very tough game. But so while we're on the game, let's talk about some specific matchups that are really going to dictate this game. I've kind of alluded to one. Our defensive line has really got to do a good job against Cleveland's offensive line. Cleveland can run the ball, and they're damn good at it. If there's one thing Cleveland's been really good at the past few years, is they've been a really good ground and pound team. Nick Chubb is a very good back. I think he's a top 10 back in the league with his combination of size, quickness, power, overall speed. It still surprises me sometimes when he's out in the middle of the field and you just see him take off. I'm like, man, that is one thick dude moving pretty quick. So, and then you have Kareem Hunt too, which he's almost the polar opposite, which is what makes him so dangerous. Is he's profiles is like a scat back, but he's a bigger dude too. He's no shrimp.
No.
So, we're gonna have a tough time with the ground game. I just know it. Honestly, one thing I'd like to do is I'd like to see DeMarvin Leal play a little bit of outside linebacker in obvious running situations. That's something he did at Texas Tech. He played defensive end in a 4-3 alignment. I know he's a little bigger now, but I mean, he's a guy that's got enough quickness out there to make it tough on Cleveland running. So I think that right side matchup, Jack Conklin versus, whoever we've got up on the right side, whether that's Alu, Wormley, Loudermilk, the whole gang. That's going to be a big matchup to watch. Or what do you want to? Well, what's a matchup?
I'm curious to see how Pat Freiermuth does against JOK, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, because this guy's projected as an elite tight end eraser, and he didn't get a ton of run last year, but he's starting in their defense this year. So Pat's been like you said, probably our best offensive weapon. We really can't afford to have a guy like that erased. So Pat's going to have to get big with it and use his body against him on these pivots and these stems.
Yeah, I agree. The only person I feel like we've really done a good job of using body wise has been Claypool at times. So it's just like, I don't know why we don't let Freiermuth go up for 50-50 balls or Pickens go up for 50-50 balls yet. I'm shocked, honestly, through 2 weeks, we haven't seen a fade pass to George Pickens. Like, it's just like, you would think that'd be the most obvious route for George to run in the end zone, and we haven't done it. So, I mean, hopefully Hannah's got that in the bag somewhere, because, I mean, this is a kid that loves to win the 50-50 ball, makes ridiculous catches and whatnot. So hopefully that gets added to it. But you make a great point there. Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, I said it right. He was a fan favorite, when he came out 2 years ago. I liked him. Will liked him as just this very athletic safety / linebacker type that can run all over the field, make plays and stuff. If Freiermuth gets erased, I question whether we can really move the ball at all, because going into this next matchup is, is Myles Garrett versus Dan Moore. I mean, that's going to be something to watch, every single snap. So, Garrett, I think he has 2 sacks through 2 weeks. So, he's starting the season hot, in someone of his talent, he's a top 5 defensive end in the league. So just our offensive line in general, trying to pass block and run block this week just terrifies me again. So any other matchups you think we should get into here, Corey?
I think this last one's just Matt Canada versus himself.
Canada versus himself.
I really think I want to see him get out of his own little box that he's put himself into, where it's all check downs and, jet sweeps have been working. I'm going to say that our jet sweep game has actually been pretty good, and we've done it 2-3 times a game, and, still had some half our rushing yards in each game on him. But I'd like to see him just expand it a little more. Let's get some deep shots. I mean, there's no NFL coordinator without deep concepts in the playbook. Let's open them up. Let's get them on the field.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more there. We have got to start opening up any playbook that he has. I don't know what playbooks he has, if it's plural or singular, but we've got to start going deep. I mentioned that we've got to start just pushing the ball down the field. We saw.
I think he might just have a little stack of index notes where it's just a single route drawn up. And then we just kind of pick that one, and then he tells Mitch over the headset.
Yeah, maybe he's got a quarterback armband where it's just, index cards in there. But yep. So I think we're just it's gonna be another game where we struggle to move the ball just consistently or whatever. I mean, I would say probably one of the most famous Steeler fans out there, Snoop Double G Dog himself, had a very interesting Twitter comment where he said, Steelers, you've got to fire this guy. So not that they listen to outside voices, and Pittsburgh does what Pittsburgh does. Standard is a standard, all that crap sometimes. But so, we're stuck with him for at least this year. Pittsburgh's not a team to make moves mid-year. They're going to give him the rest of the year to try to figure it out. So that's a matchup to watch every week. Canada versus
Yeah.
But so kind of went through our matchups. So let's dive into some NFL action now. We've got a few interesting games this weekend. Obviously, we kind of get the shotgun start this week, so I'll leave that one alone for the moment. But how about Dallas pulling out a win with Cooper Rush the other night? I could not believe that. One, I still couldn't believe how bad the Bengals looked in the first half. I mean, that offensive line looks just as bad as it did last year, and they've got 4 new starters. So they're gonna have to figure something out quick because they've got Kansas City coming up, and then, I mean, that's going to be rough for them. I think Kansas City is going to really expose that defense, and they're going to make it obviously tough for Joe Burrow and the gang to move the ball. But I'm getting off on a tangent. Let's go back to Dallas here. What a win by Dallas the other night. Micah Parsons just he's looking like the defensive MVP. It's not even close. He's got something like 4 sacks through 2 games. That's just an insane pace. On track for 25 sacks at some point, which is absolutely ridiculous. But Dallas has a tough game going to the New York Giants, a surprising New York Giants team that's actually 2-0. I can't remember the last time the Giants were 2-0. I think it was several years ago, and Eli Manning was still the quarterback.
That sounds right.
And as ugly as the Giants have been, they haven't made mistakes. Daniel Jones has not made very many mistakes, and when they have, they've overcame those. They are a scrappy team, according to their head coach Brian Dable. The Giants are favored by 2.5. Ori, what do you think about this one?
I think I like the Giants in this game, and I think it's going to be an ugly game. Monday and Thursday night games aren't going to. What do you have? Daniel Jones, Cooper Rush, Jacoby Brissett, and Mitch Trubisky. I'm not sure which genius put this together, but I think the Giants defense. Wink Martindale's a great DC. I think it's going to really stagnate that Dallas offense, and I'm not sure how much the Dallas defense will be able to counteract that. I think Barkley's looked better. He had a little down week this week, but it's a big difference from the Steelers where, the Steelers have talent and the offense just doesn't work. That Giants offense isn't very talented, but, what they're doing out there is working. So I think I've got the Giants in a narrow 3-point victory.
Gotcha. I would say I have to like the Giants here too. And it's kind of because of what actually Cincinnati was able to do to that Dallas offense in the second half of the game they just played. Dallas was very good in the first half and then did just barely enough to win in the second. So I think if the Giants come in with a good game plan, they can make it tough running for Ezekiel Elliott and Tony Pollard, make it tough on that offensive line. And CeeDee Lamb's, their big name wide receiver, but there's a guy named Noah Brown, that lit up the Bengals the other night. Been on and off their, practice squad and active roster for 5 or 6 years now. So, but who knows? Daniel Jones, he hasn't looked super impressive. He's just looked good enough at this point. So, it could go either way, but with the Giants being at home, being a division game, I think there's a lot on the line there. The Giants have just found ways to win ugly games at this point. And I think this will just be another ugly game in that sense. Definitely bet the under, SteelerFury.com members. I would not pick the over here. So, and then another NFC matchup that has my eye this week, and it's because Arizona pulled off an improbable comeback against the Raiders the other night. The Los Angeles Rams go to Arizona. Corey, what are your thoughts here? Oh, and right now the Rams are favored by 4.
4, okay. I watched that end of that Cardinals game, and they looked really good. They looked like they figured something out. So I think I'm going to have to go with the Cardinals on this, just because usually when a team comes off something, where they have such a good quarter or such a good half, that means something really clicked offensively, scheme-wise, chemistry. I think the Cardinals are going to keep this rolling. I like the Rams. I think they're still going to be good this year, but I wasn't that high on them last year. I think they just had the right set of circumstances. So I think I'm going to go a narrow Cardinals victory, maybe 5 or 6 points.
Gotcha. So you're taking Arizona to cover. I kind of go back and forth on this one because we saw the Rams look very dominant at times last week, and then we saw Atlanta of all teams, almost pull out a come from behind victory there. Just kind of mind baffling how that works, from week to week to week. There's always some improbable comeback that, we had a few of them this week, with that Arizona game. Kind of with you, I think Arizona's got all the momentum. I think the Rams are more relieved than, satisfied with their first win of the season. I mean, Atlanta marched up and down the field at times. I think Arizona has a much better offense. They have much better weapons around them. I know James Conner went out of that game with an ankle injury. I haven't read up on whether he's going to play or not, but I like Arizona here too. And as much as Kyler Murray frustrates the hell out of me with that offense or whatever, that the momentum I think is a big deal there. I think their secondary was starting to play well. Shoot, Isaiah Simmons looked like a man during the fourth quarter during that comeback. I mean, that was insane. Just 2 forced fumbles back to back on Hunter Renfrow. It's like, talk about a guy almost willing his team to win that ball game, just insane fashion too. So I like Arizona here too. So at some point we're going to have to disagree here, Corey. It's no fun when both of us show agree with each other. So let's go. Excuse me. So let's kind of go with 2 young quarterbacks in the AFC who are in one, former number 1 overall pick. Jacksonville going to the Chargers. Jacksonville has been a pleasant surprise so far this year. Trevor Lawrence is starting to look comfortable in Jacksonville. Chargers are Chargers. I actually think the Chargers should have beat the Chiefs the other night. If it wasn't for that pick 6, I think the Chargers end up winning that game by like 10 points. So that just goes to show you how one play can change an entire outcome of a game. I'll start off on this one. I still like the Chargers in this. I know Jacksonville has played better. Their defense is better. I still have to fall back on Justin Herbert being the better overall quarterback. Chargers having better all defense. I wasn't sure if Khalil Mack still had it. He still has it. He's bringing it still. I was a little worried, those the last 2 years in Chicago, he just kept dealing with nagging lower body injuries. And it's like, sometimes that can really change a player going forward, but he's been otherworldly, across from, is it Nick or Joey Bosa?
I
think it's
that
Nick.
Would be Joey. Joey's
See, you got it wrong again. It's Joey Bosa. You never remember which team those two are on. But yeah, just him across from Joey Bosa. I mean, those two are about it. I think that's the best pass rushing combo in the league right now. And I don't really think it's that close, even though I do like what Highsmith is showing us. I think just that edge rushing combination is just killer. And I think that's definitely an area I think they can expose Jacksonville on. They've played better this year, but they've still let Trevor get hit a few times. So I like the Chargers there, just better overall team.
What's the spread on it?
Oh, you're right. I forgot to say it. So right now, Chargers are favored by 7. So
okay. So I think the Chargers win, but I think the Jags cover.
Okay. All right.
I think they might even get a quick lead, and I think then they're gonna give the Chargers a dogfight because the Colts look pathetic so far. That last game was not a tough game for the Jags. And I mean, the Chargers are coming off this dogfight. I think they're going to come out maybe a little slow. I think they're the better team. I think they're going to come out and win in the end, but I think the Jags are going to give them a tough game.
Yeah, it's worth noting, Chargers are still probably going to be very likely without Keenan Allen. I think that hamstring injury obviously going to sideline him this week. I think you could sideline him for quite a few future weeks. It seems like that hamstring's been a nagging problem with him really the last few years. So, yep. I like Chargers. You like Jags cover, so that's a nice game. But let me go off on a little tangent here because you brought up the Indianapolis Colts. SteelerFury.com. I am in Indianapolis. They are ready to go downtown, burn down the stadium, and kick Frank Wright and Ballard out of Indy. I mean, it has been a very tense 2 days or whatever. My buddy Mitch, one of my best buddies, he stopped watching that game. That's how bad they looked. Matt Ryan with 3 picks, couldn't get Jonathan Taylor any running room. I know there were some receivers that weren't playing for the Colts, but I mean, to look that bad in Jacksonville, give me a break. Good Lord. They didn't score a point. When's the last time the Jags shut out a team? I mean, that's just bad. That's just bad, man. So it'll be interesting to see how Indianapolis closes out there. But then I have to go back to the NFC here because this is probably, America's game of the week. It's going to be on the Fox primetime slot. I think it's a 4:25 game. Green Bay traveling to Tampa Bay. And boy, Aaron Rodgers, we're talking up this matchup after last night's ass whooping of the Bears. Pardon my French. But, Mike Evans suspended after trying to kill Marshawn Lattimore.
Yep.
I'll tell you what, that's the first time I've ever seen someone come off the bench and try to pull that. I mean, that's.
Oh, and he didn't hold back at all. He crushed him.
Oh yeah. I mean, I couldn't. I guess I can believe it because, Marshawn and Mike Evans, they've been going at it for past few years now. So there's a lot of bad blood there. But man, I did not see that coming up. that was a big time surprise to me. But so Tampa Bay's, Mike Evans got suspended for one game. I know he's appealing it, but good luck with that. Not a lot of time to appeal it and have a quick turnaround there for him to play. So sounds like Tampa Bay is going to be without Mike Evans. So right now, Tampa Bay is favored by 2.5. Corey, what do you think about this one?
I think this game ultimately means nothing for Tom Brady's career, but it's kind of like a legacy game because, it could be the last Brady Rodgers. I feel like he always has a way of worming wins out of these big time legacy games where it's, big QB matchups or it's a, look at his Super Bowl record, unfortunately. But I feel like he always just has this way of greasing out these great games that just are going to mean a lot on the national media.
Yeah, I just think it'll be another tough game for them. I see Tampa Bay's defense is very, very good. They made the Saints not look too great this past week. I know, Kamara didn't play. I know Jameis Winston was playing with fractured rib cartilage. I'm still not sure how that's a thing. It's like, how do you not fracture a rib but play with fractured rib cartilage?
Yeah.
I'm no medical expert here. While we have a second here, Will, welcome to the show.
You guys done fucking complaining yet?
Oh yeah, I mean we complained a good amount, about Steelers game this past weekend.
Yeah, I was like, hell, you don't need me to complain.
Yeah,
I think you guys got it covered.
I kind of joked with Corey about that. It's like, how much complaining do we do about our offense every week? At least with the defense, we expect some level of,
competency.
Yeah, acceptable football. But with offense, I think we're both just kind of.
Welcome to the sitting in that seat, man. I've had to discuss the ineptitude of the Steelers offense a lot.
Yeah, a lot.
or like why play calling is what it is, or that what their offensive philosophy. It's how long do you got? It gets tiresome to talk about, but yeah, it was kind of what I expected actually, which is funny because I know almost everyone in all of Steelers land was like, how can New England be favored by what turned out to be 3 points at the end, but even 2 points or 1 point, how could New England be a favorite in this game? And I was just like, because they're basically the same team except for their offense is slightly more competent, and TJ Watt's out. So it's like, it didn't really surprise me with the spread what it was. I would have made it kind of like a pick'em game. But yeah, that part of it wasn't so surprising. It was a little bit, I was not happy about the fact that the way the run defense played towards the end of the game. And granted, it's like people can say, well, they're tired out or whatever, but at that point, time of possession was pretty even. And they just, they couldn't get the ball back. The offense had a couple of chances to get a game-winning drive or a game-tying drive, and failed miserably. Didn't even come close to that. And the defense gave up a long drive running the football. I mean, that's a pretty humiliating loss when you consider where New England maybe is in the hierarchy of teams.
Yeah, but we definitely echoed a lot of those same sentiments, especially with the run defense. It was just kind of, you knew it was coming and you knew they weren't going to stop it. Harris and Stevenson were just able to fall forward. There were bigger holes. Yeah. So we echoed a lot of those same similar sentiments there. The lack of creativity on offense, just in general.
Yeah, but like, okay, so you guys broached the subject of Kenny Pickett. I don't know, like I'm interested to see if you guys are in a different place than I am. I'm personally like, I don't care about seeing any more Mitch Trubisky. I understood what Mitch was before the season started. So to me, it's a sort of a pointless exercise once they drafted Pickett, because I just want to see, I want to come to find out what Kenny Pickett can do in an NFL game. Does he look like he is going to have those same kind of traits and same sort of comfort level that he had in college? That's far from a given, or even that he was in preseason, also far from a given, because as you know, that think about the offense, the Steelers offense looked fairly competent in preseason. And now you see what they look like in the regular season against, better defenses, whatever. But so, yeah, to me, it's like, I want to see it. I don't care about this week or next week. I think until you change the head coach's philosophy, change his mind about what he wants to do on offense, you can fire Canada, you can change quarterbacks, you can even replace the offensive line. I'm not sure it makes that much difference. Yes, they'll be able to beat some bottom feeder teams that they're not even able to beat right now. Like, let's not even get started about, this week or next week, games that should have been pretty easy for them to win, that they're now no lock to win, really. So anyway, it's disappointing, but I'm sort of at the point where, like, I want to get to the changes, whatever it takes to get changes implemented. That's what I would like to have happen. If some of that is in the short term ugly, it's better than if it just drags on forever and ever and doesn't really change. That would be the most disappointing thing.
Yeah, Corey and I kind of went back and forth on. I'm ready to see what Kenny Pickett has, just not on Thursday. I think that'd be the worst thing possible on a short week to throw our rookie quarterback in with, short prep time and everything. I think that'd be the worst possible scenario for him to
having
make his
seen
league debut.
Dan Moore, play this year, it's not impossible that we'll see Kenny Pickett whether we like it or not in this game. I don't know. You guys talk about the matchup at all in terms of things that you're looking at? Corey, I'm sure you had something in mind.
Yeah, I mean, we ran through Dan Moore versus Myles Garrett, Chubb versus the run defense. I brought Pat versus JOK. Canada versus himself, which I think is the big one, just because, I don't know what he's doing. But I mean, I'm sure you've got something that, we didn't think of.
Well, and I just feel like this is a game where the Browns, I don't think they're going to throw that much. Why would they? To me, it's like, other than screens to tight ends and running backs and wide receivers, maybe, and play action passing, why would they throw the ball? It's like this. I think Cleveland can line up and just run it at the Steelers. Even if you want to buy into the Steelers are better run defense than they were last year or in the playoff game, they're not that much different than they were in the playoff game. They're just minus TJ Watt, I think. Otherwise, it's like pretty similar lineup. So I just expect that even if, Cleveland's a little bit banged up on the offensive line, they don't have the same quarterback, that it's really all about can they dominate? Can they start off the game with getting, 3, 4, 5 yards and eventually turn that into 15 yards and 17 yards and 20 yards? And if they can, especially if they can get the lead. Steelers offense right now doesn't really look like it's capable of getting back, especially when they get behind, because they'll attempt to run it. They probably won't run it all that well. And you've seen what the passing game looks like.
Well, when we actually are behind and have to hurry up, believe it or not, we actually look like a team that can pass the ball to a degree. But yeah, I'm on board with that too. I mean, honestly, if I'm Cleveland, I look exactly what New England did last week, and I copy it point for point. Run it down their throats, make them commit to the run, pass it behind them when they do. I mean, Brissett's a capable quarterback. He's started in this league for a little bit.
Yeah.
There have been games where he looks good, and he's on a team arguably with more talent than he's ever had, with just Amari Cooper, a spattering of some other receivers there, but 2 running backs that can carry an offense for him. I mean,
yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, obviously we got to make Brissett uncomfortable, but stopping the run's number 1 key this week. So,
yeah, Jacoby Brissett has acquitted himself pretty well against the Steelers before. I think about, he's had some games where not the greatest, but that the game with the Colts, I think they were pretty undermanned at that time.
Yeah, they were.
That's the high point of maybe the Steelers, the last big run they had where they lost to Jacksonville in the playoff. But that year, I think they still had Ryan Shazier. That's Ryan Shazier's. Oh no, actually, that's one of the first games after Shazier. But they kind of had it together, and he kept a minute. Did Jacoby Brissett, and then I think he actually played pretty well in. One other time, am I thinking? Did he play the Steelers with Green Bay? I don't know if it was that or if it was.
I don't think so.
No.
Yeah, I think it was just maybe some. He came in for an injured, for someone injured, and whoever the starting quarterback was injured for Indianapolis once. But yeah, so point being, I don't think he's terrible. I mean, like, how much worse is Jacoby Brissett than what Mitch Trubisky is playing like right now? Like, I think Trubisky's a better quarterback, but by how much?
I was about to say that's not saying much.
Yeah, it's kind of like last week, Mac Jones. I mean, I think Mac Jones is, similar to Trubisky in terms of like would I trade them straight up for each other? Depends on what kind of offense I wanted to run, basically.
Yeah.
So they're pretty even. So maybe they're both a little bit better than Jacoby Brissett, but do I think either of them are better than Joe Flacco, who comes to town next week? No, not right now. I mean, Joe Flacco is like, that the thing that the people who are, the end stages of life, they're dying, and sometimes they're just like totally like in a coma, and then they perk up and they have like this, one day where they're like new, and you're like, oh my God, they're gonna recover, and it's just like it's the last thing that happens right before they die, is that they have this like they rally for like a few hours. And I feel like that's where Joe Flacco is in his career right now.
And they may only need him for that game because Zach Wilson might come back right after. So he's probably looking to go out on a shield that game.
Oh, come on.
Yeah,
Joe
right.
Flacco going to Pittsburgh and like winning a game against him with the Jets. Oh my God, he'd be all over that, right? So
my God. We'll never hear the end of that.
Yeah, so this is just a preview of coming attractions, but yeah, like that would even overshadow, like if that ends up being Kenny Pickett's first game. That's a pretty good storyline. Then you've got Joe Flacco trying to take down this Steelers new rookie in his first game, and without TJ Watt, and it's an interesting story. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah, maybe if we mention enough, we can speak it into existence. Put it out to the Twitterverse and see what happens. But like I made the joke to Corey earlier, it's not like Pittsburgh listens to anyone outside their own organization anyway. So when you joined, we were talking about the real 5-star matchup this week, which is Green Bay going to Tampa Bay.
Battle of the Bays.
Right.
Battle of the Bays.
Yep. So I mean, honestly, Tampa Bay's had Green Bay's number. Defensively, they've made things very tough on Rodgers. And it's mostly the same defense there too, except they're a little younger this time around. So still good secondary, all that. I mentioned Tom will be without one of his best weapons, and Mike Evans, because he tried to turn Marshawn Lattimore into a punching bag off the sideline.
Does anybody know what the actual root of the beef is between the two of them? I know it's been going on.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think it was either Evans said Marshawn wasn't a good corner, or Marshawn said Evans wasn't a top receiver. And it's been a certain level of disrespect for several years now.
But that's not enough to keep it going for like 5 years or whatever. Yeah.
5 years now. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they're division rivals. They see each other twice a year,
Yeah.
So it keeps getting brung back up, and the media loves to run with it too. They love the whole pitting Mike Evans versus Marshawn Lattimore thing.
Well, fortunately, much like the Browns against the Steelers, Tampa Bay maybe doesn't even have, they don't have to attempt to throw too much in this game. I know they have Tom Brady behind center, but watching Green Bay so far this year, particularly against the Bears, man, the Bears just chewed him up running the football. Like
They did.
Like that is a problem. You think the Steelers' run defense was bad last year? Like they weren't getting beaten for chunks like that. Like they couldn't stop teams from getting 4 or 5 yards on third and 3, but that's a lot different than giving up 15 yards, 20 yards a pop. So unless Green Bay can, I mean that was with all their top guys. Like, they weren't shorthanded on their defensive line. So yeah, I think this game will boil down to Tampa Bay doing what Tom Brady did so well in New England when they faced a team where the matchup was, hey, run the football against them. They just ran in waves, different guys with different ways, and then play action. And like, he doesn't have Gronk now, but he's still the master of manipulation with the play action and figuring out, knowing what to do, and when it feels right to hit those things. So yeah, I like Tampa Bay in this matchup. I don't know what the spread is because I'm not even
2.5 right now.
Yeah, so it's Tampa Bay favored.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Yeah, I feel like and I don't know. You guys correct me if I'm wrong. Does Matt LaFleur seem like it kind of feels like he's doing the same thing to Aaron Rodgers that the Steelers did when they brought in Haley for Ben. Like,
Yes.
you're trying to like reel him in, hand the ball off a lot, and then third down, hey, go make a play. And he's, it's not like he's made bad plays when he's, had the opportunity to make plays, but it sort of feels like it's reduced the magic of what Aaron Rodgers was doing. So maybe they were just, I know coaches, they don't like that chaos at all. They would rather have everything not work as well, but work more consistently. So I don't know. It just doesn't feel right watching them. Like Aaron Rodgers looks unhappy, but he's like trying to do his job, and their team doesn't seem to be, when they can run the ball against the other team, they look great. And when they can't, it's rough. That's my take.
Yeah, Corey, what do you think about this game?
Yeah, I just like the Bucks. Like I said, I just think Tom Brady has a greasy way of winning these kind of like legacy games. QB, your big time like team. He always finds a way to just come out with a win. So that's really my logic for going with him. I feel like he never loses in these kinds of games.
Yeah, Corey made a good point right before you came on. Well, this could be the last time that you see a Rodgers-Tom Brady matchup. So hopefully that lives up to the billing. I know the NFL would love to do that since that's their primetime game this week on the Fox network. So
yeah, Rodgers could retire, I think, just about any time now.
Yeah, it's not the quarterback.
Brady maybe another 5 years. I think he's dead set on playing at 50. But although he also looks like, his wife wants him to be home, his kids want him to be home, and he's ready to walk off too. So
isn't he a free man right now?
What's that?
They're not living together at the moment.
Oh,
yeah.
I legitimately do think this is Tom's last year. He's already accomplished everything he can possibly accomplish. It's other than just at some point it's going to be, do I want to continue to play and maybe alienate my family or or am I good with hanging it up? Good with making for the lack of a better term, a shitload of money off commercials for the rest of my life. Money's never going to be an issue ever again for that family or generations after by any means. But, happy wife, happy life, who hasn't heard that one? It's like at some point, you do irreparable harm, in your marriage, or, with your kids or whatever. So it'll be interesting, but I truly think this going to end up being Tom's last year. I just think after this year, if he doesn't get it, it's time to ride off.
I was joking about Aaron Rodgers, but yeah, it's entirely plausible about Tom Brady. But the thing is, if you're Aaron Rodgers, if Tom Brady retires, you can't quit, even if you feel like it, because you don't want to be going in the Hall of Fame without feeling like you're, getting your just desserts as the top prize that year.
Yeah. Well, and I think Rodgers still has multiple years left.
I don't know. I'm telling you,
he just signed a huge deal. He'll at least play that out, I think. Because he's getting paid like $50 million a year.
Yeah, it just doesn't look like his heart is in it though. Like he I'm telling you, man, he starts off seasons like that kind of or whatever, but no, he doesn't. To me, it doesn't really look like he's having fun. And if you've already, like you said, if you've already sort of established, this is what, my level of play was, he's got nothing to be ashamed of. But yeah, if you're not really enjoying it, there's no reason for him to continue doing it. Speaking of somebody that could do commercials forever or go off into the sunset and never be seen again, like a Jack Lambert.
I'm going to be honest. I feel like there's a lot of similarities with him and Brett Favre. I could see him pulling a Favre. I think he could go anywhere. I'm just not sure about Green Bay right now, but I think he still plays.
Yeah.
Yeah. And even if it's like Will just said, just so he doesn't go out the same year Tom does. So it's not 1A and 1B, getting inducted into the Hall of Fame, whenever they're both eligible, because they'll both be first ballot Hall of Famers.
Mm-hmm.
We know that. But getting back to the game here, I think Tampa Bay's defense is just going to, erase that offense again. Give me one receiver that really makes Tampa Bay worried. Honestly, the one receiver that would make me worried more than anything is Christian Watson. And it's just because he's so dang fast and, he can get behind anyone he goes up against. I think he's the only guy really that can go deep for Green Bay and win, that one-on-one matchup or whatever. Because other than that, everything's about timing, precision, underneath or whatever. And I don't think they're going to be able to run the ball either. So passing lanes are going to get clogged. They're going to have to go deep.
Well,
so I just
Aaron Jones looks healthy though. He looks healthy for the first time in a while. So I won't rule it out. Dylan up the middle, Aaron Jones on the outside. But yeah, those linebackers, man, for Tampa Bay.
Yeah, they're just horses. Devin White was probably one of my favorite linebackers I've scouted, since I got, into the whole NFL draft and, identifying the next ones. Devin White was just like my sold guy, why couldn't the Steelers trade up 5 more spots to grab him? Might have a very different defense with a guy like that, but obviously we gotta let bygones be bygones there. Yeah. I can't keep harping about how much I hate
you can trade. Trust me, you can keep harping about it. No problem.
I can, but that's not healthy, so I'm not gonna do
That's what talk shows are for. Yeah.
But so getting back to it, I like Tampa Bay by 2.5. I think it's more like 12.5 by the time the game's over. I just don't see Green Bay being too effective. I don't care how much Rodgers wants it. He talked up this game so much after the Chicago game last night. It's just like, I just think he's setting himself up and Packers fans up for disappointment. So
trying to hype himself up, probably.
Right.
What's that? When you're not feeling it, you got to create something.
Right. Yeah. Got to create your own hype. I get that. So we'll call it a 5-star matchup because that's what we've always called it. But our Pittsburgh Steelers are headed into Cleveland. Corey, we'll start with you. Right now, let me double check the line. The line is Cleveland is favored by 5 right now.
Yeah, so I think I'm going to take a win for us. Cleveland's a bad team, and we're notorious for losing to bad teams. However, we're usually a good team when we lose to the bad teams. I think this is a bad team that, since we're also a bad team right now, we can beat. I mean, obviously we cover the spread. If I think we win, I think it's got to be something like 17-14, another field goal winner. With how the offense looks and how it's going to look this whole year, I'm not sure we have a really definitive win the entire season, but I think we're able to slow down the run game enough. And probably going to need a wacky special teams touchdown and, a crazy defensive turnover to do it, but I think we get a win here.
All right. Will?
I think the best case scenario. The best case scenario is the Steelers can run the football a little bit, because they've succeeded in the past, basically neutralizing Myles Garrett by running the ball past him, like directly at his gap while he's circumventing he's the globe, the equator, whatever what's the
from his wide 11 technique.
Yeah. So it's like he's coming full blast, right, to try to kill your quarterback. And if you do something quick and get it up underneath him, I think Steelers have done that to a degree and had some success with it. That would pretty much rule out Najee Harris being that one that has the impact, because it's just not his game to, that quick hitter, right, that just goes upfield and goes. And the Steelers don't really have that guy. Even, Warren's not really that guy exactly. He's a little bit better at it maybe than Harris is. And, McFarland, he may never even dress again. But yes, the best case scenario, the Steelers are able to run it a little bit and get a little bit of action in the middle of the field where, I think that a matchup with JOK, notwithstanding that, if Cleveland can be had a little bit, it's probably, it might be in the middle of the field, at least not necessarily threatening the part of the middle of the field that the Steelers never threatened, but even just to the tight end and some quick shots and some slants there. So, my fear, that's the upside. If they can do that, they might be able to eke out a win, provided that they can slow down the run and run it a little bit. Sure. There's upside. The Browns are not really any good. So at least not as presently construed. Right. But I think the trouble with that way of thinking is the Steelers don't really run it that well, even when it's blocked up. They don't block it all that well traditionally against Cleveland. It's always a sort of a mess and a mayhem in the pocket. And so we're counting on Mitch to navigate mayhem in the pocket and make some plays when you need him to make plays. That's a pretty tough ask for somebody who hasn't, as Corey said, maybe their back's against the wall and they really feel like this is the time, but man, it's a short week, division rival. Those Thursday night games are how as a percentage, how many home teams win? I think the last time I saw it was 75 or 80%.
I'm pretty sure it was every 4 out of 5 or something like that.
Yeah. So that's 80%, right? So yeah, I just don't think the Steelers are that good at stopping the run, even when they know Cleveland's going to run it. I think that the attrition of that, because of the fact that their offense can't put up a bunch of points and get them out of that mode, that it's just going to wear them down to the point where Cleveland gets a lead in the second half. They're just going to suck the clock and the chances away from the Steelers. So I'm like I said last week, when TJ Watt isn't in the game and Mitch Trubisky is still the quarterback, Matt Canada and Mike Tomlin are still coaching, I'm not picking the Steelers to beat anybody. But I do think it could be a close game. So maybe they can cover the 5. How about that? For some optimism.
All right. So they're covering, but not winning.
I'll call it 17-13 Browns.
Most positive Will's been all season.
There you go. See, I'm turning over a new leaf.
Right.
I mean, look where we are now. It's is anything happening now that's not what I was suggesting was going to happen?
No,
I was I've seen Mitch Trubisky play. I kind of understand what's going to happen. I know what the head coach and the offensive coordinator are about. I sort of know what they're going to say they're going to do, and then what they actually go and do. And the defense, and I said it months ago, I said during the draft, if TJ Watt misses any significant time, they're in trouble. Here we are.
Yep. Regrettably, I'm with you on this one, Will. I just don't
Kiss
see
of death. Now now I'm going to be all wrong.
I'll be very happy for you and both tonight to be wrong in this instance. I would love to see Pittsburgh go into Cleveland and steal a win. I just don't see it happening. And it's because of our defensive issues right now. I think Cleveland's going to have success running the ball. And when they have success running the ball, our defense is caught chasing more than reacting. And when we chase, it's not a successful defense for us, whether it's the underneath stuff, whether, we're trailing, just that play action stuff killed our defense. We don't have guys that can recover on play action stuff. As much as I like Miles Jack, he's not a guy who can turn his hips, flip and run and go, make a pass breakup. He's a north-south linebacker who goes a little bit better east to west than some of our other guys do. I just see that ultimately being the difference. I think, a guy like David Njoku, who's been relatively quiet this year, he's a guy that thrives in this type of matchup because he's such a mismatch on pretty much all of our, front seven defenders. And then some of our, even back defenders too, even though Minkah Fitzpatrick's playing like a man possessed this year, which is sad just because it seems like we're going to waste one of his best years in the league, but I just don't see us moving the ball well. I don't see that the rest of the year unless we make some pretty dramatic changes, which I definitely don't see happening. So I don't think Pittsburgh even covers in this one. I think we lose by at least a touchdown, and I think we lose something like 20-10 even, just because that unpredictability that Cleveland's going to have on offense when they're going to be able to run the ball, they're going to be able to pass the ball, and it's all going to look really good against a Steelers defense that just can't put on the pressure like they want to when there's no TJ Watt. So I like Cleveland here by 7 actually. So and like I said, I say 20-10 Pittsburgh. Regrettably, hopefully we're wrong, but that's just where I see it is at this point.
Hey, could I point out something?
Sure.
This game is for first place in the AFC North, baby.
I know, right? How pathetic is that?
The winner will be in first place in the AFC North for at least 30 days.
Yeah, at least
by themselves in the first place for at least.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I mean, Baltimore can't give up, 28-point leads every week. So, and then, I mean, honestly, I don't see I was telling Corey, I think Cincinnati's going to get absolutely thrashed. They have to go to Kansas City or Kansas City goes to home. It doesn't matter where that game is being played. Cincinnati's not going to make that a competitive game right now. I mean, their offensive line looks just as bad as it did last year. I was telling Corey, it's amazing for a team that went out and got 4 new starters that they seem to have the exact same issues that they had last year. I mean, shoot, Jonah Williams looks like a turnstile at this point. I mean, I always thought he was going to be more of a guard anyway, but he has not looked good at left tackle at all this year.
No, he looks like he lost his confidence. I think that's the thing. You can see with players sometimes that, I wasn't super high on him coming out, but I would say that he's playing worse now. It's similar with Kendall Green. It's like Kendall Green's tape is pretty good. And then he gets thrust in this situation where he was asked to do a whole bunch of stuff that he wasn't good at. And his confidence is 100% broken now. So it's not really so fair to judge him. It's fair to say that draft pick was necessarily wrong, but what happened since then, of course, it's been terrible. Jonah Williams, I feel like a similar kind of thing. But here's the thing about the NFL. It's totally possible, completely plausible that the Bengals will lose games to Mitchell Trubisky and Cooper Rush and then go to Kansas City and beat Patrick Mahomes. It's not completely out of the realm of possibility. It's the kind of storyline we get all the time, right? So
we saw it twice last year, didn't we? I mean, I think the Bengals, were down in the regular season, end up winning that game by 14 or something.
Kansas City got so jobbed in that game by officiating. Yeah. But yes, that is true.
Yeah, I mean, they did it twice to him last year, which is incredible. I mean, if the Bengals want a shot at the division, they've got to start running the ball better. I mean, it's that simple. So But
They need to do everything better, man. Joe Burrow's on pace for 101 sacks or something.
Oh yeah, I mean,
Someone wrote today he's on pace for either 101 sacks or losing the season to injury, whichever comes first.
Yeah, God, I mean, it almost feels like he's like young Ben Roethlisberger at this point, a guy who, won very early in his career, but then the offensive line around him hasn't been good so far. It's like, or even Andrew Luck, it's like you hope. I mean, I hope as a Pittsburgh Steeler fan that he struggles for the rest of his career, but just for the guy himself, it's like you hope that's not a a generational talent sort of kind of deal that ends up having his career shortened because he's just taking too many hits or doesn't make it through seasons or stuff like that. So in that sense, you hope he plays at a higher level. You hope he finds that. But the Steeler fans, we're all fine with him not doing that. So that wraps up another episode here at SteelerFury.com. Last words, gentlemen. This week we will start with Corey. Last words, sir.
If we win, then that's great. If we lose, I hope Mitch plays bad enough that Kenny gets in.
Okay. Short and sweet. I like it. Will.
I'll make mine short too, although it's non-Steeler related. If you did get a chance to see the Cardinals game yesterday against the Raiders, what Kyler Murray did in the fourth quarter of that game. I mean, I know we had these ridiculous comebacks yesterday. It was an amazing day for football, actually, if you weren't worried about the Steelers winning. The finishes in the Jets game where, one team went ahead by 2 touchdowns inside 2 minutes and lost the game. And what was the other one with the big, Arizona. But what Kyler Murray did, it wasn't just that they came back and won. It was like, it's 4th down and I'm going to run around for like 25 seconds and then throw it to somebody that's like completely covered downfield and squeeze it in for a touchdown, or the 2-point conversion where it was like literally like 30 seconds of elapsed play time. And then he finally scrambled and scored. So I liked Kyler Murray coming out, and I've always put him in this sort of like close to the first tier, but not quite. But man, what a freaking performance. So hats off to that. I'm glad somebody is, somebody in Arizona finally decided to do something. So when that in-season Hard Knocks comes, I was afraid they were going to be like 0-5 by the time it premiered. So glad for that. That's my last word. Yeah,
Kyler was pretty insane, specializing in off the script plays, that's Kyler Murray in a nutshell. So ask him to run normal offense. We'll see. But last thing I'll say is, man, just I really hope Pittsburgh can make it through this year and realize just what they're doing is just not gonna cut it going forward. As I think it was Colin Cowherd put it earlier this offseason, as much as I don't like him as a radio show personality, talk show guy, he made a very good point. The standard is not the standard anymore. Mike Tomlin, he is so obsessed with sticking with the same shtick every single week. Iron sharpens iron. The standard is the standard. We don't live in our fears. That he is a walking bag of irony right now, because we're doing all of that. I mean, at some point, we have got to do something that says we are going to make a considerable move to make us very competitive for the future. And I'm just not sure we're going to get that without Roethlisberger. Boy, would I not kill to have Big Ben back at this point. I don't care if he couldn't move a centimeter. At least I know I'm getting a quarterback that can make throws and actually is willing to make throws. That's a big thing I said earlier. Well, it doesn't even look like Mitchell Trubisky is willing even to make those throws. He's too afraid to do it. Corey said it best. It's almost like he's stuck in lag. Everything's so mechanical. He's overthinking everything. He looks a second slow on everything he does. And it's just like, man, for a team that essentially ran Ben Roethlisberger out of town, in my opinion. They let him come back for another year, but they didn't do shit to help him in his last year. They said, okay, you can play for another year, but we're going to do what we do. There was no, you've seen other organizations do this. You see Tampa Bay go after Tom Brady, put everyone he wants around him, build up his offensive line, pair him with a great defense, go win a Super Bowl. Was it year one they won a Super Bowl with him?
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. One off season, was able to completely go all in and do it. Denver did it with Manning. The Rams have been doing it for years and finally capitalizing on last year when they went and got Stafford. And it's just like, man, if only the Pittsburgh Steelers would have been willing to go outside their norm and try to really capitalize on Ben's last few years, when there was no Antonio Brown eating up a big contract, there was no, Le'Veon Bell-esque vibe hanging over this team, whether he should get money. It's just frustrating looking back, thinking, Ben, honestly, I think Ben could have played this year still, but if we would have just put a better team around him, a better offensive line around him, but that's living in the past. But I'm just hoping, our guys can make it through the year somewhat healthy, and then we can just kind of go back to scratch after this season, because I think it's time to on offense for sure. Defensively, we're still pretty damn good, when we're not down a defensive MVP left outside linebacker. But offensively, God, we just suck. There's no other words for it. So,
well, the Roethlisbergers and the TJ Watts, when you remove them from the equation, it gives you a better idea about what you really got in terms of the other talent and the coaching and the role players versus stars,
right.
Guys that feed off what TJ Watt does. So it really starts to give you a more realistic idea about what's left behind. Same on offense without a guy like Roethlisberger. So this is what we're seeing. That's the growing pains. You have to learn what you have before you can figure out how to fix it.
Yeah, I guess I've just been so used to not having growing pains that it's like painful to start that process all over again. So
Corey's so young, he doesn't even remember the Super Bowl. He doesn't remember the Steelers going to the Super Bowl.
Oh,
I remember black and yellow for the pregame Super Bowl party.
Oh, there you go.
So that's
you were in the club. All right, I got you.
It's at the tailgating, but I think my dad might have been pregaming there a little.
Yeah, right on.
All right. Well, thank you guys for joining in this week. Again, I am your host, Jeremy Coleman. You know me as Smith is Smoking on the Message Boards, joined by our stalwarts, Corey Karbowski and Will Masasek. You know him as Bradshaw to Den on the message boards as well. Thanks for another week, and hopefully we can go into Cleveland and pull out a much needed, tough mudding type victory. So with that being said,
getting Kenny Pickett in there.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. Let's not ask for too much in 1 week. With that being said, go Steelers.
Here we go.